Hey everybody, Dave here, and thanks so much for joining me for another one. Today is all about bucktails. I'm going to take you through the whole process, from pouring to painting to tying, and I'm going to show you why I selected the ones I did. So stick around. So to start the process, you're going to need a set of molds. I actually have 3 molds here. These are brand new. I just got them in the mail today. And I've got several different sizes in here. This one here goes anywhere from 1 ounce all the way down to 3/8 of an ounce. This one here goes 1.5, 2, and 2.5 ounce. And this one here goes 3 and 4 ounce. And let me tell you why I picked these. These are called flathead jigs, or also known as lima bean. And these were before, when tog fishing and black fishing in saltwater started to get popular. Now they have the stand-up hook jigs and stuff, but this is the ones that they started with, a lot of them, and a lot of people still prefer these. So I'm going to be able to get double duty out of these, and that's why I went with a flathead jig. It's not only going to be a great trolling jig for me for striped bass, but the smaller ones I can use for largemouth bass. And the in-between ones, from say like 3/4 ounce all the way up to 2 ounce, 2.5, I can use for tog. So I've got a full spectrum that I'm going to be able to use these on. And so this is really going to be helpful to me, and in the long run will save me money. Whenever you're pouring jigs, the one thing you got to understand is you're not really going to save money unless you're using a lot of them. So if you're going to be just using a half a dozen or so a year, then just go and buy them at the store. But when you get into some of these bigger ones, they can run you $4, $5, $6 a piece. And if you're losing them on a regular basis, then investing in a pouring pot, some molds, and some hooks can save you in the long run. It's actually an investment, and that's the way you have to look at it. So you really have to weigh that out, how you want to proceed. So anyway, let's get these cleaned up and then smoked up, and I'll show you exactly how to do that right now. That's the next step in the process. So what you're going to need is you're going to need some isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip. I always keep a bunch of these in my pouring area, as well as a bottle of the alcohol. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this to cut off any oil that might have come from the factory. And you need to do this on a new mold. I think it really helps and allows the smoke to stick better. So let's just go ahead and clean them up right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the alcohol right here, and I'll just get this Q-tip nice and wet. And then what I want to do is work every cavity and sprue hole, hook slot, just like this. Wipe it down. And I'm going to do this both sides of the mold. It only takes a second, but I think it really helps to stick. I'll switch sides now on that Q-tip, get that wet, do this side, and then I'll just set it aside for a couple of minutes and let it dry while I pull out my candle and get ready to smoke everything. I've taken a candle I've gotten at the dollar store now. I want to smoke these molds, and what the smoke is going to do is it's actually a soot that I'm putting on here. It's going to allow the lead to release quite easily. And the thing of it is, you don't have to do this every time you pour. You do this once and you're good for 50 or more pours. And if it does start sticking eventually, you just smoke it up again. But all you're going to do is you're going to try and snuff out a little bit of this flame, just to make it. And you're going to fill up these cavities right here. Right like that. You can see how it's blackening it up. And you're just going to go ahead and do all these cavities, the sprues, wherever the sprues are, and the hook slots. And then I'll do the next one, and you're going to do both sides of the mold, and then you'll be ready to move on. Alright, let me talk a little bit about the mold, the hooks, my pouring area. What I've got is very simply, I've got a production pot, pours from the bottom, and if you can afford one of these, they're about $80 now. But what's nice is most of the impurities and the lead will stay on the top, and so when you're pouring, you're getting really pure lead. Whether, if you have a pot that you dip out of with a ladle, you can scoop up some impurities, and then you're going to be putting them in the mold cavities. So It's nice to have one that pours from the bottom. This was a gift to me by my brother. He had bought it some years back and never used it, and so gave it to me brand new. So you'll need a lead pot like this one, and I put the lead in there. I'm letting it melt down. There's a dial in the back. This happens to be a lead pot, and there's a dial in the back, goes all the way from 1 all the way up to or low to high, and it has numbers in there, 1 3 4 5 2 3 4 5, such like that. And I usually run it on 7, and that way it melts the lead. It keeps the lead melted, but it's not real high, and that works really well for me. A couple other things you're going to need is you're going to need a candle from the dollar store. I get the unscented ones. You get 2 for $1. And the reason I use this is I'm just going to shave off a little bit. You can see the lead starting to melt down now. Once that's fully melted, I'm going to just shave off just a little bit and drop it in there, and that's going to flux the lead, which is going to allow the impurities to be easier to take off the top. And that's what this spoon is for right here. So I'll just scoop them off. I put them on my board just like that, and then I'll have pure lead to work with. So as far as the mold goes, you'll see that the ounces are right here on there. It's smoked up now, so it may be hard for you to read. But then right next underneath it tells you the size of the hook. Okay? Like for instance, right here it says 7/0. So this is a 6/0, this is 7/0, this is a 1.5 ounce, 2 ounce, and 3 ounce mold. So that's how you know how to buy the hooks when you order the mold. A lot of times in the catalog, or if you go online, they'll have 2 pictures. They'll have a picture of the mold closed with the serial number on it, and this one happens to be a JFS-3-LA, and then they'll have a picture inside to show you what it looks like. And when they do that, show that picture, it'll have the hook sizes on there, so you'll know what to order for whatever mold you're purchasing. What I'm going to do next is, after this is heated up and the lead is fully melted, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pour lead in here without the hooks, and that's going to heat this mold up. It's going to take off any excess soot on here as well, and it'll make the mold nice and hot. You want this mold hot when you start your pouring. That way the lead has a chance to seep into all the little nooks and crannies in there and make a nice smooth finish, as opposed to going in on a cold mold and solidifying right away. So let's finish up with this pot heating up, and then I'll show you how to pour these to heat up everything, and we'll go to the next step, which is actually making the jigs with the hooks. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to heat up this mold. The way I'm going to do it is by just pouring lead right in it. And the one thing you have to watch is that you will get a little bit out the bottom until it solidifies, and that's okay. So just make sure you have whatever work surface you're doing on. You can put this, maybe you want to put the lead pot inside a baking pan or something, to catch any little bit that comes out the bottom. I'll do that about 3 or 4 times, and I'll leave it in there for a couple of seconds between to let it heat up really nice. And I'll take whatever's lead out using the pair of pliers I have here, and I'll put it back in the pot. You don't want to do this with the hooks in it. That'll come after you heat up the mold. So let's go ahead and do that, and I will just heat them all up, and then I'll take them out, and we'll go from there. Make sure you're doing, whenever you're pouring lead and such, you do that in a ventilated area. This does create some fumes and stuff, so you want to be safe. Just like that. Now that solidifies very quickly. I'll open it up, and there we go. There's our jigs. I'll just grab these and take them out, put them back into the pot. Make sure you don't splash them in there. And make sure you're wearing proper protection, eye protection, and things like that. You're working in a ventilated area, following proper pouring procedures. I don't use gloves. These are wooden handles on here, and they do not get hot, and I'd rather have a firm grip on this than a glove that could slip. So that's why I don't use gloves when doing this. So let's do this through a couple more times. We'll get it hot and then we'll start pouring. So now that I've got the mold nice and hot, one of the things I like to do is take the candle and just touch it right here by the hinge. And you don't have to do it long. You can see that it just melts right in there. And what that does is it really makes the hinge a lot more flexible and easier to open and close. And I'll do that maybe every 15 pours. All right? You don't want to get it in the cavity though, just on the edge of the hinge. That's helpful for me. So now let's load this up with hooks. So for now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour 1.5 inch jigs right now. You can pour all 3, but I'm just going to do the 1 for now. And basically all you're going to do is take the hook and just set it in the hook slot and line the eye up there. Close it up. You want to hear that click sound. You want to look along the top, make sure it's sealed up properly. Now I'll just fill it up. Just like that. Now you can take them right out. Just set them down. The hook won't be hot right away, and what I'll do is I'll pour a bunch and then I will cut off the sprues, and I'll show you how to do that right in a second. Okay, to remove the sprues, let me show you how that works. All you have to do is take a pair of pliers like this, grab the sprue, grab the jig head, and just wiggle it very lightly, and it will break off very clean, just like that. That's it. I put them back in the pot and reuse that lead. And then when I'm done, what I'll do is I will drain out most of the lead into my ingot mold right here, and then I'll have them for later again down the road. So moving on to the next phase, we're going to be painting our bucktail jigs now, and it's really simple. It's just a matter of dipping them in powder coat paint, and I'm going to make most of them white. I'll make a few that are chartreuse. There's an old saying goes something like this: if it's chartreuse, then it's for use, and if it's white, prepare for the fight. So really those are the only 2 colors that you need, and they were very effective, and so those are the ones we're going to be using. I'm going to be using white and also sometimes chartreuse hair for the jigs, but mostly everything's going to be white. So let me show you how simple it is to do these. This is a fluid bed that you can make. I'll put a link in the description below. It costs you about $3 to make it. I have an air bubbler here from a live well that I use for that, and then I also use it for duty on this one as well, and a heat gun. And all you're going to do is heat up the heat gun. With the heat gun, you're going to heat up the jig, dip it in, and then I put it in some water over here to cool it down, and I can set it on a table. It sets just that fast. So let me run you through it. Now for these smaller ones, I like to use a pair of pliers just to keep my fingers away from the heat. And it doesn't take very long to heat these up. A few seconds on each side. You just want it hot enough so that the powder paint will adhere to the jig. And then what I do is I heat it up a second time just to smooth it out, and then I dip it in the water. Alright, so we want this, so it's going to, and now this is bubbling, as you can see, and that makes it flow almost like water. You can see how quickly that went on and how glossy it is already. And it's just that easy. See how nice it is? Now we'll put it in the water to cool. A couple, 3 seconds. And then I'll put it on the table with the other ones. It's that easy. So one of the things I do whenever I'm tying hair jigs like this is they can make it quite a mess. So what I do is I take a regular grocery bag like this and I drape it over a frame that you can buy. And what's nice about that is when I cut the hair, it all falls in. I keep it underneath the vise just like this. And as the hair falls in, at the end, once it gets halfway full or so, I can just scoop it up, throw it in the garbage, put another one down. I just use these little binder clips right here to hold it in place. So that's just a little tip. Now let's talk a little bit about the vise and how I set things up. Now, normally when I tie, I like to use my standard vise. I've had this for many years, and it doesn't rotate or anything. But when I'm using the vise to tie jig heads like this, I want to be able to see the hair as I'm putting it on all the way around. And so what this does is it allows me, this vise gives me the option to rotate and put the hair on all the way around so I can see it rather than trying to put it on the back side here and blind and try and hopefully cover everything. So a vise like this, this is a AA vise, and it's adjustable up and down angle-wise, and also it rotates. Very inexpensive. It was $19.95 at Cabela's. You can get them on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below. But it might be more helpful to have a vise that rotates like this for you. It's not completely necessary, but it does help. So with that, let's jump into things and I'll show you exactly how to put the hair on these jigs. Okay, now that I have the jig set in the vise jaws, and you want to set these jaws tight enough so that the hook flexes like this and the point doesn't move. And you probably will have to adjust it for each different size jig because the hook sizes will vary the thickness. You want it in there nice and tight because you're going to be putting some tension on it. Then I take a bobbin, that's this right here, and I have it loaded with 3/0 thread. And you can use any kind of thread you want, but 3/0 is a fairly heavy duty thread and it will pull on the hair really well. Does a good job. And the other thing, you can use even rod wrapping thread or any of the letter size threads, the bigger ones. That'll work as well. Now to start this, I'm just going to come over the top and I want to wrap this back a few times, maybe 5 or 6, to make sure that stays in place. And I'll take my scissors and I'll cut it off. Now you want to stay to the back right here. You want to keep the thread to the back. You don't want to wind all the way up on top here, and I'll show you why in a second. So once I do that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the hair off of here. And you're just going to take a small pinch like this, very small, and cut that off. You don't want a ton of hair. It's better, I find, to work in just about smaller clumps like that. I'll set it up here. I hold the back and I pull out any smaller hairs in here. And then I'll set it to whatever distance I want. It doesn't matter if it hangs off forward like this. And then I'll take usually 3 wraps, just like that. Now it's just a matter of turning. This is where that vise comes in handy. Now I can turn it and I can see again to where I'm going to put the hair down. Cut off some more hair and just repeat the process all the way around. I want this hair sort of to blend into the other hair, and you'll see as I turn this how it works. I just do 3 wraps, turn again. You can see how it blended in there, and we'll just continue this process all the way around. I'll take some more, put that down here. It's really not difficult at all. It's just time consuming, and we'll just keep moving along here. But what's nice about this is it allows you to create jigs any color blend you want. This is a white and a chartreuse, and it's something you may not find necessarily in a store, but if it's something that is working well for you and you like that color, you can go with it. You can make it pink. I like chartreuse and white, white and white, chartreuse, chartreuse, and again, just line them up alongside each other. 3 wraps, keep moving along, and as you can see in real time, this is really a pretty quick process. The rotating vise really does help. I got one last piece going on here. There we go, and that hair is complete. Now for all this excess that we have up here around the collar, what I normally do is I just take my scissors like this and I slide it down underneath the hair and just clip it, let it fall into my bag. And then I'm going to go over this and really trim this up nicely Okay, so now that we have this hair trimmed back, you'll see it's still pretty sloppy. What I want to do is I want to take a 50-cent utility knife that I got from Harbor Freight, and I'm just going to place this on here. And this is the reason why you don't want to bring that thread all the way up. You just want to stay towards the back of that collar. And then you're just going to place this down here and rotate it around nicely. And as you can see, it does a really nice job of cutting that hair back. There we go. Now, once I have that back like that, now I'll continue forward. And this is where the bobbin really allows me to put the tension on here and build this up. I will go all the way to where I start going back up the jig head like that. Create some, go back. I want to build this up. I want to really, I'm putting tension on this the whole time. I do not want this hair to come loose. And so, building this up. I like the pink colored thread. For some reason, fish really seem to be attracted to pink, and I like using pink for my thread. You could use red, you could use whatever else you wanted to use. And I'm just almost ready to finish this up. Make it a nice, neat wraps. That looks good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a half hitch in there. And the way I do that is I just put my 2 fingers over the top, and then I turn it like that. I don't know if you can see that. And I just go over the top, and I just set it right on there. And then I want to keep tension on the bottom of this. I'll use my bodkin, which is right here. I just stick it in that loop and follow it all the way up. Like that, cinch it around. Now you could use several of those half hitches because you're going to finish it off with a cement anyway, but I like to whip finish it with my fingers. It's really easy to do, just over the top, and you're just keeping the one line here straight and you're going around it. Okay, it takes a little practice, but with a little bit of time you'll be very proficient at it. I come up and I like to finish that, tighten it backwards a little bit, and then I'll just take this, cut that off, and now we're ready for the final finish. One of the things I use is a UV cement on here. UV glue, I like using the thin, and then I will dip them afterwards after I put the eyes on to really seal everything up. But what I do is, as you can see, it runs down, and that's okay. But that's what's nice about this vise, is you can just spread it around a little bit. Make sure all the threads are covered. And again, like I said, this is going to be dipped. So get a little bit into the hair too, make it stiff. Make sure it doesn't fall out. Just like that. Now I'll hit it with the UV light. And rotate around. And there we go. Now that jig is finished. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to place some eyes on there. And I have all different sizes. I use these stick-on eyes just like this. I use the silver and black. They come in red, black. They have red, different colors. And all I'll do is I'll stick these on here. Based on the size of the jig, I have different size eyes. And then I will dip them in a finish. And I'll show you how that works in a second. And so now once I tie up quite a few, what I want to do is I want to put eyes on these. And the way I do that is I buy the 3-dimensional eyes like this, and they're stick-on, but they won't hold on very long during fishing. So you need to coat them. So what I do is I stick these on both sides, and then I dip them in this polyacrylic Minwax. It's a protective finish. It dries clear, and it is fast drying and easy water cleanup. It's crystal clear finish, and this is a gloss. Okay, for the smaller jigs like this bucktails, I use like a 10 millimeter eye, and for the larger ones like this is a 4 ounce, I use like a 14 millimeter or 16 millimeter eye. And I'll put a link in the description where I get these from, so you can get some if you'd like. You can fish them without. I like the eyes, and so I think it just gives more realism, and gives a target for fish to strike, because fish often strike the head. So with that, if you can see, I got all my jigs done and set up here. I'll just take them down right now, and then what I'll do is I'll dip them. Like I said, I've already mixed everything up here, and I'll just take these one at a time, and I'm just going to hold them by the hair, and I'm going to dip them right up to the hair like that, and then I'll just bring them over and hook them right there. I'll do this one. Take the excess off, and I'll just hook that one on here. You can keep them close, just make sure they're not touching. So once these have done dripping, what I do is I just touch the ends like this and take off any little glob that's collecting on there, so I don't have this little protrusion on the end of each of these. And that will give it a nice finish. And I'll just continue along. So this is what the jigs look like when they're all done. As you can see, they've got a really shiny finish on them. They're extremely durable. The only thing you might have to do is clear out the eyes a little bit. You just make sure that you take your finger and napkin or something and just dab off some of those drops as they form on the drying rack. And now you're good to go. So guys, here's the finished product right here. That's what it looks like, all done. They're great for trolling. You can hook a little swim bait on the back of them. They got a nice gloss finish. The eyes will stay on now because you've coated them in that polyacrylic. And I'll put a link to that in the description below. But these are really awesome. You can troll them for stripers. You can drag them on the bottom for fluke with some strip attached, squid or killie, piece of spearing, whatever. And they'll really, I think, do a good job for you in catching fish. You know, one of the things I just want to share with you is this, and that is that God created the outdoors for you and for me. It's really our playground. And the reason he did that is because it talks about in the Bible that creation is a reflection of who he is. It says that in Romans chapter 1. And you know, I just want to encourage you that as you spend your time in the outdoors, to remember that God created for you so that you and he can have a relationship together. And you know, if you're not sure how to go about having that relationship, I'd really encourage you to check out my free book. It's in the description below. It's called Growing Deep, and it'll walk you through all the steps you need to know in the scriptures and a little bit about my life to share with you that how you can have a deep relationship with Jesus. You know, God longs to have that relationship with you, and you know, sometimes we don't even think about him throughout our day. But you know what? Having him in my life has really enhanced who I am. Not only that, it's allowed my sins to be forgiven and my heart to know that when I die, I'll be able to be with him in heaven forever. So guys, just check out the book. I'd really encourage you to do that. Thanks again for watching, for all you do. You know, if you're not a subscriber, please consider doing that. And as always, remember to get outdoors, and God bless.